Have you ever walked into your own home and felt like a stranger? Like everything around you remains familiar, yet the air is suffocating, chilling to the bone. My name is Alex. I'm 34 years old and work in finance. A high-pressure job, but one that provides stability. To the outside world, I have the perfect life. A solid career, a beautiful wife, a well-furnished home. But there's one thing no one knows. Beneath this seemingly flawless picture, I am trapped in a relationship built on calculation. That night, I wasn't sure if I had just walked into my home or onto a battlefield. She stood there in the kitchen, arms crossed. No greeting, no smile. Just a cold, unfamiliar gaze that sent a shiver down my spine. In that moment, I realized a bitter truth. Some battles don't need gunfire, yet there are still winners and losers. We need to talk. Her words rang out like metal clashing, cold, emotionless, razor sharp. I didn't know what she was about to say, but my instincts screamed that after this conversation, nothing would ever be the same. She took a deep breath, as if she had rehearsed this speech for a long time. And then she said something that left me utterly speechless. "You need to win my love back." I froze for a moment, trying to process what I had just heard. How many years had I spent building this relationship? How many times had I put my own needs aside just to keep things smooth? And now, all of that was no longer enough. She said it as if she were laying down a new rule, as casually as deciding who would do the dishes tonight. A calculated calmness, as if she wanted me to kneel, to prove myself, to prove my worth. But I was no longer the man I used to be. The space between us grew cold. I looked at her, searching for something, some sign of regret, a flicker of genuine emotion. But there was nothing. Just that composed gaze as if she were issuing a decree. "So, everything I've done still isn't enough?" I asked, my voice hoarse with restraint. She didn't hesitate. "I need more. I don't feel the same anymore." A dagger to the heart, not the words of a wife, but the proclamation of a queen deciding the fate of her loyal subject. In that moment, I realized she no longer saw me as her partner. I was just a man forced to fight for the privilege of having her. "And what if I refuse?" I asked, calmer than I expected myself to be. A flicker of surprise crossed her eyes, but only for a second. She quickly regained her composure, shrugging as if my question was irrelevant. "That's up to you, but if you do nothing, my feelings for you will be gone." An ultimatum, not an offer, not an opportunity to rebuild together. This was a power play, and she believed she held the upper hand. But she was wrong. I was no longer the man who would throw himself into a losing battle to earn someone's love. No longer the man who would drain himself just to be acknowledged. And in that moment, I realized I was no longer afraid of losing her. I took a slow step forward, locking eyes with her. "Do you really think I'm going to play this game?" She blinked, not answering immediately. I saw it clearly, the hesitation, the expectation of a familiar reaction from me. But this time, she wouldn't get it. I let out a quiet chuckle, stepping back, and for the first time in years, I felt in control. "If you think I'm going to fight for your attention, then you're mistaken." She parted her lips, about to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned away, walking out of the kitchen, leaving behind nothing but a deafening silence. In the days that followed, I observed. She tested me in different ways. Subtle hints, veiled comparisons, stories about other men who adored their wives. But I didn't react. I didn't take the bait. She started dressing up more, putting extra effort into her appearance, waiting for a compliment. On late evenings, she hesitated before going out, expecting me to ask, "Where are you going? With whom? When will you be back?" But I simply replied with a calm, "Have fun." I saw the confusion in her eyes. The script wasn't unfolding the way she had planned. She pushed further. Late-night messages, playful phone calls when I was within earshot, pictures she accidentally let me see. A cocktail glass, the edge of a man's arm in the frame, a clumsy performance designed to provoke me. But I barely glanced at them, as if I hadn't noticed. Then one night she came home later than usual. Her perfume was stronger, her dress tighter, her smile hazy, as if she were still lingering in the afterglow of the night's excitement. She stood at the doorway, waiting for me to ask, waiting for jealousy, waiting for something from me. I simply looked up, glanced at her briefly, then returned to my work. "You don't care, do you?" Her voice had an edge to it. I took a sip of my drink and shrugged. "Should I?" A long silence stretched between us. I could see her jaw tense, frustration flickering in her eyes. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to fear losing her. She wanted me to fight, to prove myself worthy. But I wasn't playing this game anymore. She pressed her lips together, stepping closer, setting her purse down on the table, loudly, deliberately. "I met some interesting people tonight," she said, watching me closely. "They really know how to make a woman feel special." I let out a quiet chuckle and nodded. Good for them. And in that moment I saw it. The hesitation, the worry. She realized what I had known for a long time. She no longer held the power. She was no longer the center of my world, and that terrified her. I stood up, closing the distance between us, my gaze colder than ever. "You can keep playing this game if you want," I said, leaning in just enough for my words to cut deep. "But I'm not playing along." My eyes locked onto hers. "Because in the end, the only person you're trying to convince is yourself." She said nothing, just stood there, as if the walls she had built were beginning to crack. And I knew from that moment on, the balance of power had shifted completely. I was no longer the man I used to be, the one who would do anything just to maintain a relationship built on control. I focused on myself, my work, my passions, the things I had once neglected. I spent more time at the gym, reconnected with old friends, challenged myself with new experiences, and most importantly, I no longer made her the center of my world. She started to worry. The way she watched me became more scrutinizing. The meaningless questions, "Do you not care about me anymore?" or "You seem different lately," became more frequent. I only smirked because I knew the truth. She wasn't worried about my change. She was worried about losing control. Then the signs began to appear. She started trying harder, but not out of love. The sudden return of affectionate gestures, the dinner invitations she once refused, the way she suddenly wanted to be close again. One evening, she sat beside me on the couch, her eyes waiting for something. But I was no longer the same. I didn't dive in like a desperate man seeking validation. She felt it, and she hated it. Her patience started to wear thin. One night, frustration crept into her voice. "You're not even trying anymore. Don't you fear losing me?" I set my glass down on the table and met her gaze. "No." One word. But it was heavy enough to freeze her in place. I saw it. The uncertainty in her eyes. For the first time, she didn't know what to do. She was used to me being the one who chased, the one who proved himself. But now I no longer played that role. "Do you think love is a battle?" I tilted my head slightly, my voice calm but cold. "Something I have to fight for, inch by inch?" I let the words settle between us. "I'm not interested in that anymore." She opened her mouth ready to argue, but no words came out, because she knew I was right. That was the moment I realized I had truly changed. No more fear of losing her. No more need to prove myself. No more getting trapped in these power games. I had walked away from it, and I had no intention of ever going back. Then one night she looked at me, expecting something. A hint of pleading, a trace of regret, a desire for me to return to the way things used to be. "Do you still care?" I silently looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I've tried enough." That was the moment she understood. It was all over. She no longer had control over me. I no longer chased after her. I gathered my things in silence without a word of argument. She stood there, not angry, not pleading, just silence, stunned and speechless. Before leaving, I paused at the door, looking at her one last time. "I hope you find what you're looking for." She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then fell silent. Her eyes flickered, but there was no longer the strength to hold me back. I turned and walked away, each step like a declaration. I was done with this game. I drove into the night with no particular destination, but my heart was lighter than ever. No more burden to prove anything. No more feeling like I was the loser in an endless contest. In the days that followed, she texted me, Not with apologies, but with probing questions. Are you okay? I still have your things here. Do you want to pick them up? Can we talk? But I had no reason to reply anymore. The story was over and I had no intention of flipping back to old chapters. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly living for myself. No regrets, no bitterness. I just moved forward, leaving the past behind. And the funniest thing was, I knew, at the very moment I stopped caring, that was the moment she realized she had lost me forever. She didn't answer, and I didn't look back. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel pain. I just felt relief. The days that followed weren't about loss. They were about liberation. I was no longer trapped in her game. I lived for myself, did the things that made me happy, rediscovered who I was after years of being entangled in a calculating relationship. Mornings no longer felt tense. Evenings were no longer filled with thoughts about how to please someone. I learned to embrace the peace that I had never known before. She texted, vague messages, things like, "We should talk," but I had no reason to respond anymore. I knew if I replied, everything would fall back into the same old loop, a game I had chosen to walk away from. Then the messages became fewer. The calls stopped, and eventually silence took over. It wasn't about winning or losing, it was simply the end. One day as I walked past a cafe, I saw a couple laughing together. Without thinking, I smiled. Not because I felt jealous, not because I regretted anything, but because I realized that true love isn't something to be fought for or controlled. It should come naturally where both people put in effort without meaningless tests or games. I kept walking, never looking back, because I had moved on and I was free.